Welcome to Backroom Talk. Gosh, yeah, Henry he's the epitome of a professional fitness coach. I think that's definitely safe to say.
In theory, you don't, like a coach doesn't need to be a good athlete to be a good coach. I think that knowledge for the sport is independent of actual expression and athleticism of it. And that's obviously required, a lot of leadership qualities, being able to get buy-in and really have that athlete or group of athletes be willing to follow you and lay it on the line and really blindly trust the process.
To listen to more Backroom Talk, be sure to subscribe. Learn to design personalized programs with the OPEX system of coaching by heading to opexfit.com.
Henry, for people that don't know you, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, well, I am a fitness coach. I work for Big Dawgs and I coach people remotely. And I also own a gym in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I've had it for, this is our 8th year, so almost 8 years now in November. Started out as just a regular CrossFit gym, and then pretty soon after that, or early into that experience, I found OPT back then, and that completely changed my perspective on coaching, and have been working ever since to develop an individual design model.
What did you do in athletics prior to getting into fitness coaching, Henry?
I played all sorts of sports growing up, basketball, a little baseball, volleyball, soccer, but then football really was my passion. Of course, that started a little later because I had to wait till I was 8. But I never missed a season after that, and just like all the other sports were just there to fill the time between football seasons. Then, after college, I kind of found somewhat of a void for competition. And I'd always just been a good runner. Like I'd run as part of my training for football. So I thought I'd get into triathlon, and I bought a bike, and I fell in love with a bike. So just did cycling for a couple of years. Then quit that for, I don't know, I just stopped doing it for a couple of years, and then finally said, now I'm going to train for triathlon for real. And I did that for a couple of years, mostly iron distance races. Did, I believe, 5 halves and 4 full Ironman before getting into CrossFit.
How was CrossFit seen back then on the island?
It was seen as crazy. It's like, man, you guys are insane. It made sense to me. I don't even know why, because I can't say that I implemented CrossFit. I did anything that I read on magazines, really. But I would walk into Go's gym. I set a 50-minute stopwatch, and I just said, I got to do as much shit as I can in 50 minutes. And when that thing beat, I'm out. And that was thrusters till I had to stop. And as soon as I caught my breath, I'd pick up something else. So there was a lot of that kind of feel for more complex movements, and, definitely, getting metabolic kick from non-aerobic movements and contractions, a lot like CrossFit. So that really resonated with me. And to me, it was like, oh, well, now it's structured. Everybody else was like, you just do anything and try to go hard and then die after. So that I'd say that's a general perception, but I don't think it was much too different than from the States. Remember, we have a big influence, more so than other Latin American countries, but definitely the talent pool was not there. So in that regard, I'd say 4, 5, 6 years behind the development of that.
But what did you think that training was going to do for you, Henry? So you're a triathlete. You're like, I need to get stronger. So you're going into Gold's Gym. You were setting a clock, and you're like, I'm going to do all of these things. Was it in your brain? Was it to get stronger, or was it to get stronger in a different way? Like, what was your outcome that you were striving for there?
Yeah, so that was before I started training for triathlon. Like that's what I was doing back. I'd say for 2 or 3 years, I ran 5 miles on Monday morning, then hit the gym Monday afternoon. I ran 7.5 miles on Tuesday morning, no gym. Gym on Wednesday, 5 mile run on Thursday, 10 mile run on Friday, and gym at night. That was what I did for like 3 years. Then when I got into triathlon, there really wasn't much time for anything else. I sucked at swimming compared to the other two sports. So back then they were trying to get us into like 3 swim sessions a week. I was putting in 5, and I was getting additional track work. It was a lot of volume in just swim, bike, and run. So this is what I was hoping that CrossFit would do, because it's going to make me strong, and I'm familiar with these movements. And they say some workouts are only 3 minutes long. Like that to me was like that. It just makes a lot of sense. And that's really what kind of caught my eye about it.
How long did you try and do the two things together before something had to give?
About a year. And then it's not really like I don't have the story of I was feeling like I was breaking down. It was just like I was so much more attractive to the sport of CrossFit that I quickly recognized. I actually had a race in Sweden, so we made those plans with a lot of really ahead of time, and it was going to be my brother's first Ironman. So like I got to go and I got to do it with him. So that was non-negotiable, but really both of our hearts were in CrossFit by the time we went over there, and ended up doing that in 2013, and then end of 2013 into the 2014 CrossFit Open. That's really all we did and trained for was prepping for that Open.
And have you personally had much of a competitive career in CrossFit?
Yeah, that got to a point of something's got to give, in the sense of competing or coaching people to compete. Of course, I really wanted to develop the business and grow as a coach. Was and still am extremely passionate about that. And I wanted the client load because of everything that comes with it and all the exposure. And I feel like I genuinely do experience success and victory through my clients. So it's something that I value a lot. And that just got to a point where I can't handle 2 sessions a day. And I know that I need them because that's the volume that I want to put in, because that's what I know that I need to peak, and that's not happening. And I just couldn't handle not competing at 100%.
So for you, what drew you to choosing coaching over competing? Like what was the decision there?
Well, for one, the financial aspect of it, it was my business, and we were we were trying to grow it. And that was logical. I also wanted to be, I wanted to, again, grow as a coach. And if you have 10 clients, you'll grow at a certain rate. If you have 20, then we can say you may be growing at twice that rate because there's more experience to be had, so forth and so on. With the success that we had early on competing, where everybody was just doing main site style workouts versus, you guys are like structuring your training. We got a lot of interest from local competitors. So that, it was just kind of happening for me at that time. And it wasn't a difficult decision. I took on as much as I could until I couldn't handle training. And okay, so now let's do 1 session. And I'm not even recovering as well from those sessions. Now they need to be, shorter sessions. Now they need to be easier sessions. And then I'm not fit to compete anymore all of a sudden, which was fine because, like I said, I really do enjoy coaching and, going to competition with my clients.
What level of competitive experience do you believe a coach needs to have to work with competitive athletes?
I'll answer that like in theory, because I really do believe that in theory, you don't, like, a coach doesn't need to be a good athlete to be a good coach. And we've seen that time and again in all sports, and vice versa, right? Like, real good coaches were never really good as athletes, or real good athletes could never have success as a coach. I think that knowledge for the sport is independent of actual expression and athleticism of it, and that's obviously required to be a coach. And then, a lot of leadership qualities need to be present. It doesn't matter if it's individual sports or team sports. Being able to get buy-in and really have that athlete or group of athletes be willing to follow you and lay it on the line, and really blindly trust the process of what's being done. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, so you're saying that you don't believe a coach has to be a good athlete to be a good coach for competitors, but do you think a coach has to be in the mix at all to be a good coach for competitors? And in the mix, I just mean they've done the shit that they're giving their athletes.
Yeah, in fitness, I definitely do think so. From the sense of, like, the coach needs to know how certain things feel. So, I mean, you need to know what it's like to get on a rower for 90 minutes to be able to explain to somebody how to pace it. You need to have done lactate intervals to recognize if that person did it right or not, right? Because I really rather be dead than alive during the 3 minutes following lactic rebates.
I didn't know you were going there. I'm like, what do you mean you'd rather be dead?
But yeah, I don't think that you need to be good at fitness to be able to be a good coach at it. I don't think you need to have gone or to regionals or to the games or won events. Just as long as you understand training and have put yourself through those experiences in the past, that's a great help for sure.
Yeah, I think fitness is unique in that manner, right? Because we could name off probably every other sport, and we could say you don't have to have vast experiences in that sport to be a good coach in that sport. The major three in this country, of course, right? Like basketball, baseball, football. There's coaches and managers that are really, really good that have never done anything in those sports as an athlete. Even getting outside of that, like you look at like boxing, right? It's like there's boxing coaches that are outstanding boxing coaches, and they've never really put the gloves on in any real scenario. And I think you can keep going down the rabbit hole of sports that's why I think fitness is very unique, because I'm with you, Henry. I think it's the only place right now where you just have to have experiences there to be a good coach. And I think it's because it's so new, right? Like, I know it's really not, right? Like, people have been moving their fucking bodies for thousands of years, but the idea of fitness outside of survival is very new, right? So maybe in 100 years, that will be a different scenario. But today, I think coaches have to have been or have to currently be in the mix and doing those things.
Agreed. And I also think, since it's a new sport, like, people that are coaching now, like myself, I can say, like, oh yeah, I'm an individual regionals qualifier, but the level of fitness and talent required in 2014 to accomplish that was way less than what would be required right now. Whereas in 20 years, my ability in 2014 is, we wouldn't be talking about this. Like, you weren't even good at all, right? Because that's kind of what happens. Like, in basketball, for example, that coach probably did play basketball in high school or something, but that was it for him. So nobody even paid attention to that, because he's, the level at where professionals are is so much higher than regular people. And I honestly do think that we're starting to see that in fitness, where, not only what games level means, but 1 through 5 at the games, even compared to 35 to 40 at the games, it's a vast difference. in their abilities.
Yeah, I think even if you removed competitive fitness from that, I think it still stands, right? Like if you're a personal trainer in a commercial gym, if you're an aerobic step instructor, it's like, what are they doing, right? If you're a spin bike instructor, what are they doing, right? It's like, to truly understand what you're giving the person in front of you, you have to have felt it, right? I'm going to go to the grave with that, right? And it's not only in sport, though. It's just in moving your body and fitness altogether. And it's like, if you're coaching someone, you have to understand what you're giving them. You have to understand what that feels like. And I think that was a great example of, you have to understand what it feels like to be on a rower for 90 minutes. Because if you've never been on a rower for 90 minutes, you may be thinking, okay, they may be out of breath. Maybe their legs are going to burn a little bit, but you're not thinking like the skin's coming off of their hands, their ass is burning, like little things like that, right? So I think just fitness in general, it's like you have to have experience in those things, or you have to be experiencing those things right now to be who knows what a good coach means, but in my mind, a good coach.
Gosh, yeah, and I mean, you guys as Big Dawgs coaches over the past however many years, because the sport is so new, you're involved in this like constant research project where, you're coming up with ideas and testing them out like in real time. And I think putting yourself through some of those tests is incredibly important. Henry, I'd love to know from you, how did you initially get involved with James and with OPEX as a company?
Yeah, so I went to an athlete camp in Cincinnati. And it seemed like everything that I was asking myself as an athlete for CrossFit and as a coach for CrossFit was answered there. It mainly like, how do I get good at handstand push-ups when I'm only doing them every 3 weeks? Because there's all this other shit that I got to do just to keep the program honest. And like just start the way that James explained it and broke up energy systems, like that made a lot more sense in my brain. Having done, even if it was magazine bodybuilding and endurance training, like I could see how that was put together for the sport. So I immediately signed up for CCP. I went to that athlete camp in October, and I think first week of December that year, I'm in Scottsdale doing assessment and program design. And then I came back like in February and did the other two. And I think before the summer, I was level 1. I continued to talk to James, and I would get on calls with him just to bounce ideas off of him and, ask him questions. I think I wrote a few blogs when like Megan would reach out and said, we're looking for somebody to write a blog on like this topic, and I do that. So that's kind of how I stayed in touch until early 2015 when Mike Lee back then reached out. He sent me an email and said like, hey, can we schedule a Skype to talk about OPEX Global? And I'm like, yeah, sure. And we set it all up. And then I emailed him back. I'm like, Mike, what the hell is OPEX Global? And he was like, that's what we're going to talk about. And of course, that was the program where we were going to start bringing in coaches that were not at HQ to work for the company's remote coaching business.
So getting into the remote coaching game, because I definitely want to have a conversation around that. To date, you've been working with athletes in person. Is that correct?
Yeah, I still have a couple clients or a few clients at my gym. I'm very fortunate to have a team of coaches, 6 total, who are legit coaches and have been with me for a good amount of time. They're all CCP as well. So I've been trying for the past couple of years to have them, take on in-house clients so that I can support their efforts more of a mentorship role. And because I'm there and I can still like see everybody. So I feel like I coach everybody through these guys. But still have, I want to say around 10 clients that have been with me for at least 4 years, if they remain. So I still do some in-house hands-on coaching.
And when you first got into remote coaching underneath OPEX and then ultimately Big Dawgs, what were some of the big differences you noticed between that and working with your clients in person?
I think that I adapted fairly well to that. It definitely required a little head scratching, as in, how do I explain this in written words to somebody that's in Croatia and I will never meet in my life, versus, being able to just walk out into the gym and say, like, dude, look, like this, right? So, like delivering coaching remotely like that took a little like trial and error and see what worked and figure out how it resonated with clients. Very early on, I identified what I believe to be like just very powerful words to follow each one of my prescriptions, and that's, does that make sense or is that doable? I always ask that when I give any instruction, because you'd be surprised how many times it's like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. But if I don't ask that, like they would have never, asked the question. Of course, it's a lot easier with technology because, if you don't understand what I've just written down, I can find a video for you. If you don't understand that, I can video myself. So there's all these other layers of support that you can provide. The biggest, besides that, the biggest challenge is in, getting feedback from clients and making sure that they're not just marking, oh yeah, complete it. And it's like, well, yeah, I thought that was going to be 5 minutes and it took you 48. Like that kind of stuff. Like I also had to, get some experience in knowing when to ask those questions before, it was 10 weeks down the line and I never realized that something was going on just because I wasn't able to see it day to day. So to summarize that, I think just creating my systems for communication in both directions. I think that was the biggest thing and still believe it's the key to remote coaching.
What are your thoughts, right? I mean, obviously we're in a unique position right now with COVID, and I know you're experiencing it right now firsthand, and we'll get into that in a minute, but what are your thoughts on, or what is your advice to coaches that reach out and they're like, hey, Henry, you've been doing this for a really long time. You did it very effectively on site, and maybe those coaches understand that now you're not doing that on site at this very moment because your gym's closed. How are you doing this thing effectively online, and what's your advice to me as a new remote coach?
I think the advice for a new remote coach would be the same to any coach who's just really like, handling out like generalized fitness prescriptions. That gets a lot tougher when you're remote because the fitness conductor is not there, whether it's that coach or somebody else who's handling it, to demo movements. Not everybody has the same equipment. You can't see what they're doing right or wrong to be able to scale it down. So I'd say first step is learn how to assess and individualize exercise prescription. If you know how to do that, then it's back to what I said. Now figure out in each individual case for your clients how much detail or what tools you will need or they will need to understand what you're trying to communicate.
Do you think there's as much opportunity for coaches to grow remote businesses as there is to become a coach inside a regular gym in 2020?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot more opportunity because the gyms are closed. So if you want to do anything right now, at least where I am, it has to be remote. Short answer to that one. There's just no opportunity right now, and it seems like this is still going to go on for a bit more. To try to do anything inside any four walls, it has to be either outside in very small groups, which starts kind of being there's a problem of cost effectiveness, or can you really deliver programs for each and every client that will not have a group to feed off of and will not have a gym's worth of equipment to maintain them motivated to work out? And I use motivated as a word that comes up, not because I believe that's actually the right term.
What are you dealing with right now, man? I know that we've had offline conversations on this, but just for people that don't know, kind of take us through what March to today has looked like for you and your on-site business.
Yeah, so we were locked down on March 17, basically closed for 3 months till June 15. Up to that point, we basically loaned out all the equipment in our gym to be able to support our clients' fitness needs. Obviously, nutrition and lifestyle, a big piece there. In the full package of support that we provide. Everybody was working out from home. Of course, we lost a good chunk of clients. Some because they just found it tough to be compliant and to adhere to the routines from home. Others because obviously they weren't working either, and they were in somewhat of a financial pinch. Then on June 15, they allowed us to open. That was short-lived, so that only went on for 30 days before we had to close back down. But still, something that's real important that I think a lot of gym owners didn't realize, that month wasn't a good month because you open back up and now like my memberships are at 70%, but my expenses are back to 100. So that first month was pretty shitty, and I was expecting a second and third month at least, until things kind of started getting back to normal. What's encouraging about that month is that new memberships were, I'd say, double what they regularly are, and I'm not talking about clients who were put on hold coming back. I'm talking about like just fresh clients with a lot of interest in individual design and smaller boutique type gyms. Now we've been closed up again for a month. It's not a good outlook. A lot like what you guys have heard in Arizona. There's now rumors of, you guys may not open till January or until a vaccine comes out. So it's kind of all up in the air. Definitely a different experience for us. I'll include all of my team because we kind of had 2 days where we had our hissy fit because it's like, this fucking thing again, closed, and like we did all that, but now we knew exactly what we had to do, and we knew what the 2 days of handing out equipment was going to look like. We know that in 2 weeks, these clients are going to start to feel bored or start complaining about X or Y. We know what to look for because we already did 3 months of it. So, of course, experience is crucial in any situation. So it's been a little bit better to handle with not so many unknowns, other than the unknown of when are we going to be allowed to open again.
When do you make that call on if this is a waiting period for you or a transition period for you, right? Because let's say this thing does go to January, Henry, it's like we can, reverse engineer the economics behind that. And, if you continue to lose clients at a certain rate and you have any expenses at all, you're probably not going to be in a good place, right? So what would be, and there's a lot of places that are dealing with this right now, right? There are a lot more places that are opening up, like New York's opening up now on Monday, right? And we're like in Arizona and we're like, shit, we thought that New York would be way behind us, but that's not the case. So I think there are a lot of people, coaches or gym owners listening where it's like, where is my breaking point? And I'm not telling you to lay out your breaking point, but what's your plan if this thing is unsustainable? What are you going to do with your facility?
Well, if it's unsustainable, we got to close. I mean, there's no other choice to that. And I will talk about my breaking point a little bit. I decided that would be in a dollar amount. So I have X amount of dollars in the business bank account. I will, my threshold is this X amount. And if it dips below that, that's as much as I'm willing to lose. My reasoning is I don't want to be broke and out of business. I'd rather just be out of business and still have a couple bucks in my pocket to do something. So I don't know if that's the best advice for all gyms out there. Maybe, client count is something to consider. Different gyms and different realities. Are you paying rent? Are you being able to coach remotely? Are you completely closed and making like zero? So all those factors need to be taken into account. I will say that we're picking up clients right now, like this time around. So other people are realizing, or people from other gyms are realizing, like I just don't want to do the template, or it's not working out. So they're calling us to work out with us, to where right now I'm really focused in trying to buy some more gear so that I can loan out more equipment and keep my clients happy for a longer time. And that's, you guys know how challenging that is right now to be able to find anything. That's the opportunity that I'm kind of chasing down right now.
You'd mentioned that you have a good team of coaches underneath you, and also that you are really, looking to step into more of a mentorship role for those coaches. And this challenging time, like, everyone is looking for leadership, and a lot of them are looking for that inside their places of work and inside, their communities. How are you supporting them through all this?
Well, they continue to coach. They're in a better spot than 90% of fitness coaches out there. During the first quarantine, those first 90 days, I even paid for half of their floor coaching hours on top of their cut off of their clients. Unfortunately, I had to sit down with them the second time and say, like, guys, it's a much tougher spot. We're a lot tighter. Like, I won't be able to do that. But the way that everything was set up, and because of the business model, they're still making the bulk of their salary via coaching. And yeah, like I said, we're still picking up clients. So some of them, maybe they lose a couple clients, but they've been able to make back one or two. So it definitely could be a lot worse from that perspective. But as a coach, you're still making a good bulk of your salary. It's really, the house that suffers a little bit, because it's that overhead that it's tougher to shake.
The important thing that I take from that, Henry, is, or the main thing I take from that, is have foresight and understand what you're willing to swallow financially, right? And I think that was great advice. No matter what situation a gym owner / coach is in, as the months start to pass, really have an idea of, where is your breaking point? Like you said, whether that's cash in the bank, whether it's client count, whether it's fulfillment, I don't know what it is, right? But I think we all have to have our breaking point laid out prior to getting there, right? Or we're just going to be head in the sand, super reactive, and like you said, you're going to be shutting your business down, or you're going to be getting out of the coaching game broke instead of just getting out of the coaching game or the gym owner game.
Guys, we got to be realistic. We have no idea how long this is going to go on. This is the second lockdown. Who's to say there's not 3, 4, 5? So, I just wasn't comfortable on going, every 2 weeks, let's hear what the governor says. Maybe she allows us to open, that just didn't fly with me this time. And so I'm like, man, I have to set what that threshold is going to be for me. And hopefully I'll be disciplined enough to make good on it and not say, oh, maybe I can handle, dropping a little bit below it. But I ran the numbers and it makes sense there. And I was real honest to my team of coaches as well, and letting them know, like, guys, this is a business, and I'm eating up a lot. I'm taking a huge hit, but at some point it's got to give. And of course, there was a little bit of tears and everything, but everybody was understanding. And like I said, they're not only good coaches, they're amazing people, and they've been working really hard on their clients and doing whatever they got to do to try to push forward.
Yeah, you're wearing a lot of hats in this, man. So just to kind of recap all of the things that Henry Toraño does, right? Like, you're the head coach of Big Dawgs, you own OPEX San Juan, you do education for OPEX and the OPEX Gyms a couple times a week. You're a husband, right? You're a father. What am I missing, man? Like, you're doing a lot of different things, and it seems like you're doing those things fairly well. Well, from my side, you're doing those things very, very well. But how do you balance all of that stuff, man? Like, how do you find the time in your day to be good at that many things?
I don't know. I wish I could tell you. I'm definitely no Tim Ferriss. For one, I'm grinding. I've just learned that I felt overwhelmed with everything that I have to do so many times, that right now I just trust myself that I will be able to handle it. So whether that's, dude, just take a deep breath or sleep on it and you'll figure it out and like put it together. I just look at everything that needs to be done and I prioritize and, just budget time for shit. And I'm amazed at how much faster I work when it's required. And I get frustrated vice versa. When it's an easy day, I'm like, how is it taking me this long to write 3 programs? It's because I know there's no pressure, right? But somehow, when it's needed, I like focus and am able to take care of business.
Yeah, there's a lot of research on the benefits of cramming, right? Where it's like they look at university students and they're like, how do these students perform so well when they stay up all night, they study, they walk into an exam, and they pass that exam without any preparation before? And a lot of that turns back to we work some of us work very well and very efficiently when we have to, right? So how did you get there, man? Like, was it just trial and error? Were you super inefficient and really shitty with budgeting your time 5 years ago and you kind of just worked it out? Or is there a system that you use or like some principles that you use to stay on track on a daily basis?
I don't think I've ever been shitty at it. For one, it goes back to me needing to make stuff happen and me wanting to make stuff happen. I was a really bad student. I didn't have bad grades, but if you ask my parents, I was the worst student just because I never did any homework. I never studied. It was like, I'll pay attention in class and get my C's and I'm good to go. Because I don't give a shit about, European history. It was the truth. When I start taking classes or really wanting to learn something, then I'm a lot more applied to those subjects or topics or whatever it is. But then I really do think that the key is, dude, when I was only writing my gyms program, that would take me all of Sunday, like literally 12 hours for me to put that together. And then I had 3 clients, so it's 3 times the amount of work, and that would take all Sunday. And then I had 12 clients, and it was that much more work, and it took the same amount of hours. So I'm just confident in that, little by little, I develop certain tricks and systems to be able to handle more work, and it's not a huge chunk of work. It's just a little bit more. Just learning how to develop efficiencies to handle that little extra bit. I will say that I am very disciplined as well or structured in that I'm on my computer at 6 a.m. I'm working out at 1 p.m. and I'm either in bed, sleeping, or, about to at 9 p.m. I write all of my programs Monday through Thursday, and I need to get them done before 2 o'clock because my creativity is not there after that, maybe because of the workout. And Friday in the afternoon, I'd usually pick up my kid and, do the best as I can to really enjoy Friday afternoon, Saturday, and Sunday to be able to recharge and, be at peace with the grind for the next 4.5 days. So yeah, I guess there is somewhat of a strategy to it.
I think it's super important to note as well that you went into a field of work that you're incredibly passionate about. And I mean, we obviously made that decision as well when we all became fitness coaches originally. Is that something you've ever struggled with, having your passion be your work?
No, it's actually quite the opposite. So I studied marketing at school, and I had a fantastic job. I was a buyer at a retail chain with over 100 stores in the island. I did that for 11 years. I was making a good amount of money, but I wasn't passionate about it at all. I always liked and was attracted to fitness, but like just knowing what I knew, I was like, there's no way that a gym makes this amount of money working, 8-9 hours a day. Like I'm good. Until, just as circumstances came up, I had to leave that job and then had more time and was open to looking at these other opportunities and actually trying to grow something from the ground up. I don't struggle with that at all. I actually feel that I'm fortunate that I can honestly say that I'm passionate about my work. It doesn't feel fun while I'm doing it. And I say that because people think that, I'm like in this high the entire week. I'm still like, oh shit, like tomorrow's Monday, like we gotta get, it's still work for me. But I definitely feel fortunate that I'm so invested and that I feel fulfilled from my work.
That is such an important thing you just said there around, even if you do feel fulfillment, it still does feel like work. Because I know I've chatted with a lot of fitness coaches and even clients, and they look at you and they're like, you live in the gym, like your life must be butterflies and rainbows, like you're never at work. But I think we know that's not the case. What about the balance of being super busy at work, Henry, and then having a young family as well? How do you make time for both there?
Well, I've learned how to breathe deeply a lot, especially during the lockdown and the 28 interruptions that I get during the day while I'm on Zoom. I actually have a double door in this office that I locked, and it has been pounded on several times since we started. But yeah, so what a lot of people don't know, but I actually have a 21-year-old son as well. So I did go through a lot of these things already, albeit I was very young and immature and stupid. But I've had to do a lot of auto-reflection in how to respond to these circumstances, because I see my older son right now, and it's like, holy shit, where did these years go? And so I'm trying to make it a point to really, appreciate and live these years with my kid. And it's definitely been a completely different experience. Not good or bad. Well, yeah, definitely good. But how people say, oh, if I could have known then what I know now, like that type of thing. I feel that as far as fatherhood is concerned, that I've been awarded that gift to a certain degree. And I'm just trying to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, parents specifically, I think they make and I don't know it all, right? Like I have 2 young kids, so I haven't been a parent for longer than 9 years, but I think a lot of parents go wrong when they try to create boundaries, right? Especially now where it's like, we're at home, we're working all day, we have the kid banging on the door. It's like, I think we can look at that a little bit differently, and we can think about how can I include my family or my kids in what I'm doing on a daily basis. Obviously, you're not going to bring them in and like, have them on your shoulder for every Zoom conversation. But I think that's where a lot of parents go wrong, and they get really frustrated and talk about going against the grain. When you try to create boundaries with young kids, you're fucking going against the grain because they don't exist, right? And if you are successful in creating boundaries with young kids, I think you just said it in so many words, I would say you're doing the wrong thing, right? Where it's like you have a kid that's sitting at home all day and you're like, go do your thing for the next 6, 7, 8 hours. I'm going to do my thing. We'll meet up at that's not real life, right? So I think a lot of parents go wrong there with trying to have like these very concrete boundaries and just need to kind of flip their thinking into how can I make my child a little bit more involved in what I'm doing on a daily basis, especially in fitness.
Man, that's how my day runs right now. I work 6 to 8 a.m., wake him up. I do the bathroom and brush the teeth and breakfast, so we have a little bit of a moment there. Then I'm back to work. He's doing some homeschooling. He'll come in like, hey, I need my Buzz Lightyear costume right now. So we go over there and do that and run around for a couple minutes, and then back here. Then by the time I go out and work out, I make them come out, even if it's for 5 minutes. I'll throw him a couple baseballs, or he'll jump on the trampoline. And that's really it. It just goes back and forth like that all day. It was frustrating in the beginning, again, because it's just interrupting the flow of my day. And I know that by 8 a.m. I have X amount of programs done. By 12 p.m. I have X, and that was severely off schedule. But then, yeah, just getting confidence and knowing that it's okay if I'm slightly off of that, I still make it work and nothing's going to happen. Quote of the month for that. Last week he comes in and I'm like, dude, I've told you so many times when I'm doing calls, you can't interrupt me. He's like, Dad, I'm not interrupting. I'm talking to you.
That makes sense.
I'm going to try that. That's so precious. Well, Henry, there is one last question I do want to ask you, and that is, what's up with that wall behind you?
That's my Zoom backdrop. Nah, just kidding. So, I'm a bit of a sneakerhead. I'll give you more of a peek here. So, been collecting for a couple years. This is actually like half of my collection, because when we moved to this house, my wife made me get rid of the other half. I didn't get rid of it. It's stored at the gym. But yeah, I don't know what else to say to that. You'll see some runners back here. Most of them are Jordans over here. The Jordan 1's my favorite silhouette by far. I've worn all but 3 or 4 of them for no particular reason, just haven't gotten around to it, but they're all my size and I do intend on wearing them. That's a question that I get a lot.
Well, if the world burns down, Henry, and fitness coaching is no longer a thing, you can make a good amount of cash by just selling all of those shoes behind you, particularly the Jordans off to the right there.
No joke. They've gotten so expensive in the last couple of months, I think because of The Last Dance. The ones have, the pricing on them is ridiculous. I don't know that I could do it though.
That's a Chicago Bulls documentary.
I appreciate that.
And Henry and I have a connection because I used to think Henry was from Chicago. I thought he was from Chicago and moved to Puerto Rico because he's a Cubs fan, he's a Bulls fan, like he's a Chicago fan. So I thought we had like this thing. I thought we were like from the same neck of the woods, and then we were talking one day and he's like, I'm not from Chicago, dude. I just like Chicago sports teams. So I felt a little disconnect, but I think we brought it back together, man, over that time.
Man, the Cubs, that's hands down the most troubling relationship I've had in my life.
It's like you're mistreated for a number of years, and you go a year and you're treated really well. So you're back in the relationship, and then you're back to being mistreated. So you're like, do I stay or do I go? I'm going to stay.
And this is why I don't watch sports.
Cool.
Well, yeah, thanks so much, Henry.
Thank you guys.
Appreciate it, buddy. Have a good one, man.
You too.
Stay with us for more Backroom Talk. Gosh, yeah, Henry he's the epitome of a professional fitness coach. I think that's definitely safe to say.
Yeah, just hearing him describe his routine, every aspect of his life, even if he's not like conscious about it, and he talks about he's grinding and he's getting through and he just makes it happen. It's obvious that like over the years he's refined his schedule, he's refined his mindset and the way he thinks about work to create a routine that really works for him.
Yeah, I think that comes from, I mean, and he talked about it, right? It comes from the years and years and years of, you know, having discipline and sticking to a routine and, you know, always having that carrot of getting better, right? When we start to look at, you know, playing college football, playing semi-professional football, and then looking for that carrot after that. And it's like, okay, triathlon is that for me. And, you know, I know he looked at it as like grinding away at those things, but he was grinding away at those things because he wanted to get better. And then transitioning to becoming a fitness coach, right? Starting with, you know, just programming for his gym, and then the 5 people, and then the 12 people, and then the 20 people, and now the 50 people, plus the million other things that he has going on. I think all of that is deeply rooted in he just wants to be the best that he can be, because Henry's just a very stoic dude that doesn't compare himself to other people. And that is really clear when you hear him talk about his intentions and why he does what he does. He's just like, just trying to get better, man. That's it, right? So, gosh, he's a true pro across the board.
Yeah, it was good to hear. Not good to hear that he's, you know, got a bunch of challenges right now with the business, as everyone does, with the uncertainty around lockdowns and coronavirus. But the fact that he is there as a leader for his team, that he's able to keep his team members afloat through this, and that ultimately he's not going to let this like suck the life out of him either. Whether it is, you know, having to pivot and change his plan in the long term of what his ideal business would look like, or, you know, continuing along if he's able to, he's not going to let this thing dry him out.
Yeah. I mean, the guy just always has a plan, right? And like, you know, some behind the scenes stuff in the conversations that I have with Henry, that's always really apparent. He's always trying to formulate his plan, or he's working toward his plan. And that's always there. And I think that's why he's so successful at everything that he does.